Brogan, do you have some bills on there you need to be recused from?
RT Rod, I don't need to make a motion to change the unit for RT Rogers.
Is that the only one?
Yes.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Brogan, is there a second? Second by Mr. McBride, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in affirmative. The board will deal with the RT Rogers bills separately from the other as per the request of Mr. Brogan. Are there any other adjustments any member would like to put forth to the agenda?
And I'd like to make a motion under employment professional that we, vote on Elizabeth Lee separately.
That's employment professional. Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Brogan. Was there a second by Mr. Angel? That the board pull out, say that name again, please.
Elizabeth Lee, secondary education specialist, vacant.
On that. Oh, I see it now. Okay, there's a motion on the floor that Elizabeth Lee, secondary education specialist from Fayette County, be considered separately from the other recommendations of superintendent. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in affirmative. That hiring recommendation will be considered standalone by itself. Are there any other requests or motions for adjustments to the agenda presented to us by the superintendent?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda with the aforementioned changes.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride, that this board approve the agenda as presented by the superintendent, subject to the aforementioned and past adjustments. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. There's no public comment. Are there any presentations?
Yes, sir.
Item 6, approval of minutes. The superintendent recommends approval of the following minutes: May 10th, 2022 regular meeting. There's a motion on the floor, Mr. McBride, seconded by Mrs. Farley, that this board approve the minutes presented to us by the superintendent for May 10, 2022 regular meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Item 7, approval of bills. We will take up the consideration of RT Rogers bill first. Mr. Brogan, if you'd leave the room, please. The chair moves that this board pay the RT Rogers bill. Seconded by Mr. Angel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 4 votes in the affirmative. Please note that Mr. Brogan recused himself from consideration of this vote. At this time, the board will take up consideration of the remainder of the bills as provided for us by the superintendent.
Second.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Angel, seconded by Mr. McBride. This board approve the paying of the remainder of the bills. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in affirmative. The bills may be paid. Item 8, approve transfers and supplements. Gentlemen, I think if you look in your packet, you will find a handout in your packet that provides details. Are there any questions that anyone would like to put forth, any discussion or anything before you would consider approving these transfers and supplements as provided to us? Mr. Angel, any? Mr. Brogan? Ms. Clark? Chair would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the transfer of supplements.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Brogan, we approve the transfers and supplements as presented to this board. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McBride. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in the affirmative. The transfers and supplements as presented to us have been approved by this board. That brings us to item 9, new business. Discussion, possible action to approve the following policies. And the policy presented before us is 2B1, board meetings. Superintendent Warble, I'll let you present the information on that for the board to consider. In the folder, you will find a copy from the superintendent.
You have my only copy.
Oh, I have it. That one, I'm sorry.
That was the one on the website, is that the most current one?
It's 2B1, board meetings.
Right.
I do know it's this. In order to help the superintendent attend superintendent meetings on Thursdays, the consideration was, that we discussed previously, was the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month will be regular board meetings. And is that pretty much it?
Yep.
That's it?
The changes that were made, the last time you could have approved them, but there was the wrong address and the wrong location. That got corrected, and then there's a blank for the dates that you guys want to have board meetings. So instead of the Thursdays, my suggestion to help us out in the central office would be moving to Tuesdays, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. That's the only thing you have to change. There was no public comment.
Would that give you time to post for public comment and so forth? Would you have to change your days or? would
Yeah,
that-
we would have to change, but it'll be easier for us to pay bills, I think, to help out with the business office.
Well, it will, it just means they'll have to post the agenda 2 days earlier the week before. Okay. Is there any proposed action, any members?
I'll make a motion, we approve the board policy 2B1 board meetings.
One second.
And
Testing.
Superintendent Warble, in that policy, it does specify 6 p.m., correct?
It does.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Angel, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that this board approve policy 2B1, which states that board meetings will be conducted on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. It'll be at 6 p.m. and it'll be here in the auditorium unless otherwise designated. Is there any discussion?
When would this be effective?
July
Yeah,
July.
and that's because we had posted last year for a year, fiscal year. Okay, any other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 votes in the affirmative. This board will, in July, will begin meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in this building for regular meetings. 5 votes in the affirmative. Under 9B, we have discussion, possible action regarding 2022-2023 Summers County State Salary Schedule.
You should all have a copy of that. It's front and back. Ms. Crook, does this include the percentage that they voted on?
This right here is only, this is the state salary, the basic state salary with the state legislative, increase of 5% for professional, which ended up being $2,440, and for service employees, which is $120 a month. So that's what the basic is, and this is something you all have to do every year.
Yeah, I think this really is an optional, right?
Right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the state salary schedule.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride, that this board approve the 2022-23 Summers County State Salary Schedule as presented to us by the state legislature. They determine what we pay, and we approve it. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye, 5 votes in the affirmative. 9B has been approved. That brings us to item 9C, discussion, possible action regarding approval of the Summers County fiscal year 2023 budget.
Same thing here, it's basically a formality we've already done all discussed, right?
Right, we've already, discussed everything, as you can tell, where our property taxes are, that's what we get from the state. Other local, sources, we've been very conservative with what we put on there, 15,000, basically our interest that we're receiving. We're actually receiving more than that, but again, wanted to be conservative. State aid for schools and other unrestricted funds that we receive. So this is an estimate of our total revenue for next fiscal year, which would be approximately 13.8 million, and our expenditures are the same, 13.8 million. And that gives you Fund 11 is the first one. For the capital projects fund is approximately 7.6 million, and this is our SBA grant. We have spent some of those funds already for this fiscal year. Special revenue is all your title services. And then lastly, federal stimulus and state stabilization fund, that's your ARP funds, and this is approximately what we have left of those funds.
I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2023 budget.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor, Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Farley. This board approve the 2023 budget that was presented to us previously, was put out on review, and we have approved levy rates, etc. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye, 5 votes in the affirmative. That brings us to item 9D, new business. I think you have a handout in the folder, do we?
Yeah, and I'm gonna hand you another one.
Okay.
I'll give Renee a copy, and then she can pass the rest down. What this is this a proposed salary schedule? There you go. It is. Take 4. Don't be greedy, it's 4. And, the proposed salary schedule, supplemental, is for us to look at our supplemental pay schedule. I had a nice conversation with, Mr. Duncan and Mr. McBride can correct me on this, but it was about a month ago. I brought those two in to have a serious discussion on our supplemental contracts. As you walk through the supplemental contracts, this includes all of our employees in the county. And at the top left, you have the name, and in the middle is the position. You don't look at this as the person, look at the position. And then you have the contracted days. Now at the top, you'll see superintendent. That one is county funded, and it's 261. The reason it's blank is because that's a negotiated contract. Everybody else, these are, yeah, you take top 4. This last page that I passed around is the lowest that I put down, and then the others go a little bit higher for supplemental pays for a discussion. Tonight doesn't mean you have to make any kind of action, but we need to have a discussion on seriously looking at a proposed salary schedule. You should have a current salary schedule there already, but basically, this is to start looking at ways to make ourselves a little more competitive with other counties around us. Now, we have to put a little caveat out there. We have no excess levy. So when you look at this, it says county funded, or it'll tell you where the other resources are coming from. We do have some jobs that are split up. So if you look at Director of Special Ed, that's a Dr. Knott position. Half of her salary, 50%, comes from a special ed fund, not county. 45% comes from child nutrition. That's what the CN stands for. The county pays 5% of her funding. And you can read as you go down where the money is coming from. What we tried to do this school year and last school year is try to use a lot of that, I'll just call it COVID money, because there's eServe, ARP, and all these different acronyms, but everybody understands COVID stimulus money. We try to use a little bit of that to pay for people who do clean the buildings, which would be our cooks, or maintenance to keep stuff up. Those county funded positions, or those COVID funded positions have freed up county money to just start storing that away for later dates, which a lot of counties are trying to do, because we all know it will run out by 2024. That is a guarantee. So we can't just get used to that like being fat on the hog, if you know what I mean. So as we look at this, there is a lot of information here, but this also includes not only day-to-day operations, but as you flip through this, you see that every person in the county would be affected by this in a positive way, because it would be a pay increase. At the bottom of the second page, just for example, our teachers, when they do after-school projects or before-school projects outside of their normal work hour, currently they get paid $23 an hour. What we're putting here for a proposal is $28. That's a $5 increase. But if they work 3 hours and come to a staff development, we'll just do a flat rate of $120. When I was talking with Mr. Duncan and Mr. McBride made a proposal. Mr. McBride, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you see how we put the service monthly supplement there? On page 2, we put a flat rate of $40 a month that they would receive and their check extra. You go to the next page, that's all coaches. What we try to do is clean up the language with the coaching. The past 20, 30, Mr. Duncan can correct me if I'm wrong, 40, 50 years, this county has operated where they have the head coach deem how much all the assistants get paid.
Actually, that started in 1999. Coaches were volunteer in this county prior to 1999.
So 1999 is when the coaches decided to make the pay scale?
And,
Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah.
Okay,
Been the
so,
same way ever since.
so.
in
what-
since I'm old, in 1979, the first year I coached any sport here, it was that way too. The head coaches made that decision as to what they would take and what would be given to assistants. What Mr. Brogan is referring to is there was a period of time where coaches were asked to volunteer. It was because of a shortage of money. That went on, I'm not sure, but for a year or two. But then in 2004, I can't speak before 2004, back to when he's talking, but in 2004, it was, as you said, the head coaches made that determination.
Right, so what my point I'm getting at is, regardless, it's just, you can't do that. That is illegal, unethical, and in the words of our lawyer Trey, you'll go to jail for that. You can't even do any kind of that nature without board approval. And so, just to let everybody know, we tried to clean this up and to put this in perspective of what type of job they have, how many kids they be working with, and we tried to be very conservative / liberal when you look at how many coaches you need for how many players and what involves those types of sports. So nothing against golf, but that's a little bit less student population and not as dangerous as football, for example. Now, again, I'm not saying football is more special and golf isn't. You have to understand the complexity of the sport and what takes place with that. Again, this is a proposal. These are supplemental pays, and you can see how we broke this down to try to make more sense. The very last page will show the difference. The current county supplement is, I'm rounding up, $43,000. If you add in this supplement, this page, the most recent one I gave you, this is the least expensive. The difference would be $43,302.50, and it would bump up to $62,372.09. Am I reading that correct, Lauren? Because between my bifocals and the lighting, is that correct?
Yes, I'm trying to pull it.
So when you look at that, there is an increase, obviously, but we were trying to be more competitive. When we go to gift that building over there at the middle school, July 1, that building with no people in it right now has cost the board $70,000 a year with nobody in it for utilities. There's some money there, and I do realize that's not free and clear forever, because once we add on to this building, we're gonna have to put money towards that. But at this point in time, we have done a really good job last year having a $700,000 positive. We have not spent more money, we've received more money. This year, we're over $1 million. So we've done a really good job of watching and pinching our pennies. And when you look at the pay schedule, this is a proposal, and I'll answer any questions that are easy, any ones that are hard. I might say, Ms. Crook, you can have those. But on a serious note, this is a discussion with possible action. We wanted to dip our toe in the water and say, here's a way to try to cover some costs in the county and make some pay raises without costing the district too much money to go in the deficit spending. So go ahead with any questions.
So you mentioned 43,000 and you mentioned 62,000. Right?
It jumps up to that if we would go with this. If you would agree to all this, you would jump up to 62 versus 43.
So 43 was for the 2021-2022 school year.
That's what we're operating on.
Okay.
Correct.
Because I was looking at the handout you just gave us, and I saw 43,000, which was just for a 200-day contract, but many of these positions have more than a 200-day contract. So I was thinking you were comparing the 43,000 there to the 62,000 in the total supplement, but you're referring to two different years.
Right.
Okay.
This current year is what we're going by with the 43 and change, and the proposal
Okay.
is 60, what is it, we have there, Ms. Crook? 62, 63?
So the form in our folder, we should just disregard?
You probably don't want that one, because this is the lowest that I can give you that would make it comparable to, and I'll give you an example. Our principal at the high school has a supplemental daily rate of $54.51. Our current rate for the central office daily rate is $47.30, $47.50. What we were trying to do was at least bump up our central office to, well, $55, to be a little bit higher than the highest principal at the high school, and that's because the principal at the high school has more responsibilities and more students and more activities. So that's where the $55 came from. The ones that are in your folder, I think we put down $60. So I thought, well, to be reasonable, instead of haggling over stuff, I was just trying to make it simplified for the central office to get the least amount of increase, but everybody else would get the most increase.
So, and that's why I'm asking if I disregard the one in the packet, because the one in the packet, the one you gave us, I do see service monthly supplement, but I don't see that on the one in the packet. Unless I'm overlooking it.
No, I noted the same thing.
So, okay, so I'm going to disregard that one. Now, I guess I'm curious, do we have any data or any metric on, we're talking about professional hourly supplement for our teachers, the $28 an hour. How many teachers or professional staff do we have that utilize that or take advantage of that option right now?
What happens is, and I'm not trying to avoid the question.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of hard right now.
Well, I'll speak in generalities, because like you have homebound. So a homebound teacher, it depends on how many kids get homebound, because you do have kids that, like we had recently, a car accident. If that student didn't graduate, that could be a homebound situation. It depends on that kind of stuff with accidents. You also have situations where after school tutoring, you have other activities that teachers go to, such as meetings that are outside their normal work hour. So they might get together and work on professional development, or they might be teaching others or helping out. And to make it right, we pay people for their time that they put into the school system. Ms. Jones or Ms. Crook, am I missing any other generalities there?
Just to give an example of a Saturday training, the last Virgin Promise trainings, were on Saturdays, which was $200 flat rate. We have, I think 27 on the first Saturday, and then just a little over 20 on the other Saturdays.
So, this $28 an hour is paid to the teachers if they do something above their teaching responsibility.
Yeah, if you take their normal daily rate
Okay.
of coming to school and working, think before school starts or after school ends, that they would come in. Another way is they might go to a professional development this summer. Let's say, I'll use Miss Hudson here. Community schools last summer, you went to the training and you got paid for going there. So you have those situations that come up where we send people to training in the summer or outside the normal work environment.
Some of these positions, though, are gonna get a supplement for doing things inside. Are they also gonna be doing things outside of their work, their normal work day to get that supplement?
They could possibly, yes.
But
They
they
could.
wouldn't have to.
Right.
And the teacher would have to get that supplement, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I know it sounds kind of convoluted, but we didn't make the laws and the rules, we just have to abide by them. But this is one way to help out our clientele, if you will.
Should the board approve this, this would be effective for fiscal year 2022, 2023. correct?
July 1, start July 1. Yes.
I would point out, as do all the considerations under new business, as discussion, possible action. And this is not a decision that has to be made tonight. I would think that going forward, something that involves an entire system like this with so many people, that I would think that the board that will be intact starting in July of 2022, all those members should have an opportunity to look at this. And because of that, I would suggest, in fact, I would move that we continue to look at this, discuss it, and I would move it be postponed for consideration until the first meeting of July 2022. And that way, the entire board for the next school year would be able to discuss this and vote on it. So that's a motion I have on the table. Is there a second by Mr. Brogan?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. So this would come up again in the first meeting, July. And Superintendent Warble,
That, I just want to put out that the second Tuesday in July is the 12th. That means we've already had our summer soul program starting, and it'll be full force. She'll be in the third week of that. Will that affect their pay?
I think the payroll for summer school, we posted for $28 an hour, but at the second meeting in July, we will probably have already started running the first payroll for the fiscal year.
Right. Okay.
There's a statutory meeting, July 5th, is that, so can we add it to that agenda? Is that soon enough?
yeah, you can put it on there.
Is that soon enough?
Well, right now in June, if you have the Thursday meetings like we do, the last meeting will be on June 30th. You could maybe make a decision by then. I know that's squeezing in, and what Mr. Duncan is saying though, you were saying you wanted that for the new 5.
Yeah, I think it's something that, when it comes to money and consideration, it goes all the way across the system. And I think that's a consideration that should be made by the 5 members who are going forward.
Well, just to give you an out, they can always vote, you can just abstain if that would help you out. I mean, I'm just looking at the time crunch on this supplemental stuff, but I get what you all are saying too.
Yeah, I felt like a new member ought to have input on this because it's going to be effective for going forward from July 1 of 22-23 school year.
Okay, well, we got June, end of July. We'll ask Trey that question about the July meeting.
That'll be
Put it
fine.
on the next agenda for further discussion at this point.
And you can always make a request to put something on the agenda, and you certainly can. You can have it placed on the agenda for
That way
June
we'll know-
26th,
Yeah.
or the first meeting in June. You can do that, yeah.
That way we'll know from Trey what we have to do.
Plus, that when you put discussion and possible action, you can take no action.
That's
Just like
right.
you did tonight.
And that's why it's written that way. Because that means the board didn't make a prior decision. They didn't used to read that way, by the way.
So, sorry, since I'm taking notes, you made a motion.
There was a motion, I made a motion. It was seconded by Mr. Brogan,
That's all I needed. I just want to.
and there was 5 votes. I did recall that right, didn't I? Okay, all right. And as I said, it gives you time to reflect, and you do always have the option to request that there be an agenda item. I will tell you, since it was passed, you'll have to go through a special procedure where you have to put an agenda item on to overturn something that's passed, and then you'd have to have the next agenda item on to rediscuss it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, you do, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. I did that when we changed the minutes of a meeting when they were incorrect, and that was legal because Howard Super said it was. Anyway, okay, let's move on. We have Item E under new business. Discussion and possible action to put the following policies out for public comment. We have 2BO, Board of Education repeal. We have 2B5, language to be included in a legal services agreement designating central office personnel, a repeal. And we have Roman numeral 4-C-4, procedure relating to employees' legal employment. Does anybody have any question regarding 2BO that you'd like to address to the superintendent, get explanation on? Board of Education repeal. Superintendent, could you just tell us basis on that one?
Well, according to Trey, what he's saying is a lot of these repeals are because there's already state guidelines on what to do, and then you already have policies on this. It's like redundancy, so it's just cleaning this up and getting rid of old.
Of stuff that we don't need.
Yeah, you
that's
don't need
redundant.
it, because you already have it in another policy.
All right.
So he's just trying to clean this up because there was a lot of clutter from the last 47 years.
The chair would move that this board repeal policy 2BO on the Board of Education based upon recommendation from the superintendent who got his information from our attorney, who has been designated to rework our policy manual. Seconded by Mr. McBride. Any discussion?
I just have one for
Go ahead.
clarity. You have E is all these policies, if you flip them over, they're all to go out on public comment.
All of them.
That's all it is. You're gonna put this out and see what the public has to say
All right.
about this, so you
So-
really don't have to go,
All right.
I
We're
mean-
going to do them individually.
not to tell you guys what they're just trying to.
Yeah. Chair withdraws that motion then. Let's take new business item 9E, and if you look on the back side, I apologize, you'll see that there are a total of 10 policies, and these are going out on reviews, which means we have additional time to look at them. So the chair moves that this board approve the superintendent's recommendation based upon discussion with the attorney to place these policies on review for the public. Seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. Worrell. Okay, 9F, discussion and possible action to renew the memorandum, memorandum of understanding between SCS and the SESC for bus operator examining services July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
Just to help you guys out, the MOU is there. This is pretty much boilerplate. When I was the RESA director before it turned into the ESC, this was an easy company to run this through. They do all the paperwork for us. They help keep everything going. This is just an agreement that we have with the other 11 counties that we work with through the ESC for this bus operator training. And you can see what the requirements are with this MOU. We're getting the same deal as the other counties, the other 11, so this isn't anything different than any other county in our ESC.
Chair moves that this board approve the MOU between SCS and SESC for bus operator examining services for July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McBride. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. No, not this one. No, you can vote on this one. Chair votes aye, so there'll be 5 votes in the affirmative, Superintendent. Now we'll go to 9G under new business. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of roll over bid with Gordon Food Service for the 2022-2023 school year. That has to be approved each year because we can't encumber long term. Is that correct?
Correct.
And this is the same service we had last year.
Yeah, we're happy
rolling
with
it over. And obviously, you must be having pretty good service with them, or you would have recommended it. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion on the floor, Mr. McBride. Is that you, Mr. Angel? Second, Mr. Angel. This board approve the rollover bid with Gordon Food Service for 22-23 school year. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in the affirmative. That brings us down to personnel items. I'm looking at item 10.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session under 6-98-4.
There's a motion on the floor of Mr. Brogan that this board go into executive session. Seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in the affirmative. This board is going to go into executive session on the personnel item requested. And we will be back shortly, and I will call the meeting to order once we come out of executive session. The time is 7:28 p.m. and the chair calls this meeting back to order. Superintendent Warble.
Give me a second.
Okay.
I'd like to rescind my recommendation on employment for the secondary ed specialist. I want to rescind that.
Okay. Gentlemen and ladies, you have before you you have, under item 10, personnel items, you have superintendent recommendations for resignation and retirement. That one block. Turn it over, you have employment professional. That block, excluding the one that was dealt with separately. We have employment service. We have employment substitute service. We have summer sole STEM employment, substitute professional. Chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we accept the superintendent's recommendations, personnel.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. Angel. If this board approve the aforeread recommendations of the superintendent regarding personnel, is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5 votes in affirmative. Superintendent's recommendations have been approved. That brings us to item 11, superintendent's report. Superintendent Warble.
Just a few items. First one is gifting the middle school building to a nonprofit organization. It's the, is it the new or three? Three Rivers?
Three Rivers Forever Foundation, I believe.
Three Rivers Forever Foundation or Three Rivers Foundation Forever. We're not sure which order, but that doesn't matter. They at least have that status now, and we will be able to gift that on June 30th, to give over that property on July 1. What has taken place is Mr. Metter has been feverishly trying to get things prepared for the transfer of the building. We have filled up 4 big dumpsters. We said we'd take care of the trash and any items that they would not need. The thing that was going on today that was nice to see is we have surveying going on. And then we will be working with Bulls Rice, Mark Antoni, who does real estate for Bulls Rice. They'll draw up the contract to gift that property over to that nonprofit entity. Do any of you have any questions so far with that?
Is that survey complete and that's separated?
Yes, what will happen is, just to help you out, you have to visualize this. You know that carport between, I call it a carport, between the 2 buildings?
Joins Perry Memorial to the building.
So basically, if you take the middle school building and you take that wall and take it right up the steps, the building kind of goes back, so they would get part of the steps. Long story short, we're gonna grant easement for that, and then they'll grant easement for us on the backside. It's just gonna work together to make sure everything works as a team. The problem that we have right now, it's not a problem. I was able to get information from the state fire marshal, the 2nd command. I asked him a question about our fire system. He said, that's a good question, we'll research that for you. The question was, we're connected. So if there is an alarm that goes off, you have to go over to the middle school building in the office area to shut it down, because that's where the brains of the organization is for that. What we need to do is we need to make sure we have our own brains and they keep their brains and separate the 2 out basically. So they gave us permission to just separate them the best we possibly can. They did say, couldn't you share it with them? And I said, yeah, but if you do that, if a fire alarm goes off, you don't know which building necessarily, and I would hate to cause confusion with the fire department, because when an alarm goes off, you want to know which building that it came from, if you know what I'm saying. So long story short, That won't be too big of an issue, but we're gonna work through that with the nonprofit entity at this point in time. You guys have any more questions about that, Bill? Okay. The next one is the SBA update. That is, like Lauren talked about earlier, about the money. We still have a little over $7 million. We haven't spent a whole lot except for drawings and pre-bids. Our first round, we did pre-bids. We had about 8 companies. When we got the bids in, a week later with the sealed bids, we only had 1 company that put a bid in, and they came in about $2.6 million over our budget. We only had 8.2. So what does that mean? Well, since the school building authority, it's their money and they're gifting it to this county, they have control over a lot of things. The first thing they say is go back to the drawings, literally, and look at your schematics. Where can you make savings? So I gave them some suggestions, and I didn't want to cut back on square footage. So one part of the bid had the media center making it a cafeteria. We're gonna do that in-house. On the pre-bid, they had close to $300,000 to redo that. It shouldn't cost that much. I think when you get to these bidding projects, I think some people get a little crazy with their bidding. But that was one that we said we would do in-house. If you look at the gymnasium, we wanted it to have windows at the top, like the windows in the middle school. We're gonna do away with the windows and just block it all the way up because that'll save money. It's like those things that'll try to cut back on cost. So what that means next is the month of June is gonna be really busy. The next Tuesday, we should have new drawings for the addition. Now, when I say new drawings, for all of us, it won't be that big of a deal. The new drawings will be taking away stuff like the windows and that over there and a few other things. Hopefully that'll help with cost. One thing I found out from the architect, Tom told me that brick and mortar is cheaper than metal right now. So the cost of stuff is fluctuating all the time. It makes it tough. But then after we get the drawings next Tuesday, the following 2 weeks, we'll get a pre-bid with companies to come in and talk it over with the new schematics. And then that'll take about a total of 4 weeks. So we're looking early July to know if we'll be awarding a contract to the lowest bidder or the best lowest bidder as we move forward. I am still working with the SBA to see if we can get a few extra $1 million in case it does go over the 2.6. At this point in time, without you asking me and pinpointing me in front of everybody about this, I am working behind the scenes to try to get more money to this county the best way I possibly can, and we'll just leave it at that. For the Hinton area and the Talcott, that is using COVID money for those additions. We will have the schematic designs of both facilities early June, and I would say late summer, we might be able to start working on those 2 facilities. So Summers County is officially under construction with a lot of moving parts. So if you guys have any questions about that, I know I'm pretty nebulous or generically talking, but I don't have any more specifics other than a quick update about what the architectural firm told me the last couple of days. Any questions? Okay. I talked to Sheriff Ferris. There's 2 things we talked about. Obviously, a lot of people know about the tragedy and the sadness that just took place in another school shooting. Sheriff Ferris and I talked, and what's nice is we have a training going on in Beckley, June 27th and through June 30th, and we will pay half, and the county will pay the other half for both our SROs. And so we'll pay $300, they pay $300 for both SROs to get the training. And what the training is, and you guys can take a copy with you tonight, but basically what it is conducting comprehensive school risk vulnerability. Thank you. Assessments. And what that means is the course objectives are to provide responsible for making security decisions, which is great because I think what happens a lot of times, and you can say it at your house, you get used to an area and you get a little lax sometimes. what I like is we have an SRO that helps us with that, to keep an eye on things. The other thing is to equip participants with basic understanding of the pros and cons of existing solutions being offered to enhance school safety. You can't argue with that. And the third one is to assess that participants have a basic understanding of crime prevention and understanding the environment that you work in. And the fourth objective, to provide peer discussion and evaluation of proper techniques and introduce new effective tools being offered to school safety today. And the fifth one is to demonstrate what works in school safety and what does not work. And I like this last piece, why each one works and why they don't. So what I like is we're working on that. In October, our first professional learning day with the whole entire staff, we will provide an active shooter training. I believe that's October 21st. So on October 21st, if anybody wants to come and be a part of that, even if all 5 board members come, that's not considered a board meeting because you're just sitting there like the rest of us. When I say sitting there, you're going to be active too, and seeing how it works with active shooting. And it's sad that we have to do that, but we have to look at what we can do better to protect our kids. And having 2 school resource officers this school year in community schools has been a great preventive measure to help our students out. And then you see on here, it says end of year report for 21-22 and summer school year. Just real quick, end of year for our students will be tomorrow. Last day for students is tomorrow, and the last 2 years our students really haven't had a last day because of being home and away from the school setting. And then next Tuesday, the 31st, is the last day for our staff, and that'll be their last day. And then June 1st is officially summer for our staff. Summer school, we're hitting it, and today Mr. Boone sent out an email, and he has all the buses ready to go for summer. I know it's hard to think about, but we're ready to go for our summer program. And between my directors and CSBO and all the people putting in the work, we really don't have a day off. It's year round, and I'm okay with that because I do enjoy my job. I know my staff enjoys their jobs, and we just got to keep moving forward and pushing our kids to be a better version of themselves and challenge them and make them stretch. I know some days stretching is harder than others, especially when we have a bad hair day. No pun intended for Greg and I, but on a serious note, it was a great school year as far as navigating through all the COVID, all the vaccines, the political. I think we've handled it pretty well. And if you don't look at the situations that happen, you look at how you handle bad situations. And I think we've all done a pretty good job. I'm pretty proud of the staff. I know I jokingly said something to Joey tonight, but I said tomorrow, the last people that'll see our kids is always the bus drivers on the last day of school. And it's bittersweet, but I know we've had a pretty tough school year, but we're ready to move forward. I think next year we'll have a slogan that we're going to squash fear. And what was the next part I said today? Yeah, thank you. I'm still working on my slogan.
What was that?
Squash fear, learn anything.
Learn anything?
Learn anything. Because I think when you tell them to learn certain things, I think you want to make sure our kids are not told no when they can do whatever they can put their mind to. And we have a lot of talented young individuals. And I was at Talkit this week for straight A's. And you talk about a great banquet and kids smiling. And there are some 5th graders that have gotten straight A's every year they've been in school. And one thing that I can say to the kids publicly is they've done something that their parents and grandparents have never done. And that's getting straight A's during a pandemic. And all the things that are going around them, they still persevered and got some straight A's. And just to let you guys know, and I'll leave you on this, it's useless information, but it was funny. Some of you in this room might know this kid. I don't know his first name, but I know it starts with an H, and he likes to go by H Money. So H Money was in the house, straight A's every year, and he's the cutest little kid in the world, but he's gonna be a sixth grader next year. It's gonna be different, H Money, when he comes here, but, you know, that's the exciting part, is our schools know how to celebrate the achievements that our kids have been making, and it was pretty cool to sit there. I got to sit by the Teacher of the Year, I got to eat Italian food, and I got to just sit there and just enjoy watching kids smile while they got their plaques and trophies, and they were pretty excited. And it was just a great evening, but that's my report, Mr. Duncan. I have nothing else to report to you tonight.
Any discussion by anybody on anything you'd like to see on the next agenda? You can always bring that forth to the superintendent and/or me between now and my last meeting. There's a couple things I'd like to say. One, Mr. Avis, young man just graduated from your class, worked for me yesterday. And I believe his name is Nick Willie.
Oh, man.
Outstanding young man, and I understand he's done very well in his CTE testing. In fact, I think he even has some licenses now, does he not?
Well, Nick had actually, he had taken his general contractor's license, and 2 days after he turned it, he missed it by 4 points.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I told Nick, I said, I failed it the first time I took it.
Yeah.
But
Well, he's an example of things we're looking for, and we hope that perhaps sometime in the future you can bring him back and hold him out as an example to your other students, because he's going to do well. And I was really proud of working with him yesterday. That's one thing. Another thing I'd like to say, let me tell you something. He worked me to death. That boy can work, and he knows what to do, and he doesn't wait for somebody to tell him what to do. He's a good one. One thing that I might put forth and suggest, and the board can take it up, that you might, not now, but school's out, I guess tomorrow's the last day. In July, it might be a good thing for you, your staff, to go through our schools and make a report to the board and the public on all the things you have in place, whether it's locking doors, all the security we have, to do an overall analysis of how we feel our school system is prepared, or to find out things we need to do differently to insulate us as much as possible from the horrific things that have happened in other school systems. And I think that would be a major thing, task force, and I think that report should be made. That's just me. I won't be around, but it's just my suggestion because it came to mind to me. Other than that, Vice President, you're on.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. The time is 7:46.
This meeting stands adjourned.